Hello, and thank you for joining me in the Fire Protection 103 course group presentation on the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, presented by Jarrett Williams, David Benalcazar, Arturo Velasco, Mario Melendez, and Phillip Landwehr. March 25th in 1911, in New York City, New York, when the Shirtwaist Fire took place. It is believed that the fire started when somebody tossed a cigarette into a bin of cloth scraps on the 8th floor. Employees on the 8th floor quickly evacuated when the fire was unable to be extinguished. Employees on the 10th floor quickly evacuated after being notified by phone operators. The 9th floor, however, was not so lucky. Nobody notified the workers at all. They were made aware of the situation when the flames reached their windows from the floor below. Also, as you can see from the Boston Sunday Globe newspaper article, the fire claimed 148 lives. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was located on the 8th, 9th, and 10th floors of the Ash Building. The building still stands today, but it is now called the Brown Building and is currently used for biology and chemistry labs for NYU campus on 23rd to 29th Washington Place in Manhattan. There were several contributing factors to the start of the fire. The first one being lack of training on emergency procedures. Employees were mostly immigrants who were looked down upon, so safety factors were not of importance as compared to how much production was. Doors and hallways were locked to prevent workers leaving without having their bags checked, to ensure nobody was stealing material. This meant that they were unable to escape a fire emergency. Many employees were poor immigrants who could not read or write, and they were not made aware of what to do in the event of an emergency. This resulted in the establishment of OSHA, and government became involved in industries and business safety practices. Fire drills and inspections also became routine. Another severe contributing factor to the fire was the lack of building codes and enforcement. Many building codes were put in place but were not enforced by government agencies. Fire escapes were inadequate and collapsed as soon as employees tried to use them. The hose lines in the structure were also damaged and non-operable. In addition, there were no landings on the stairwells. Also, as a side note, there were too few stairwells. 10,000 or more square feet per floor required the use of 3 stairwells. The Shirtwaist Factory only had 2. As a result of the lack of building codes and enforcement, more local agencies became involved with the codes and enforcement of these buildings to enhance employers and employee safety. A few of the newly established codes were door swing in the direction of egress, fire escapes, escape signs, lighting, and sprinkler systems. Here are a couple pictures of the structure floor plan. Tables were placed strategically in a way that would minimize conversation among workers and maximize productivity. There were 2 stairways down to the street. One was locked from the outside to prevent theft, while the other only opened inward. Had the fire escape not collapsed, it was still too narrow and would have taken hours for workers to use it, even in the best of circumstances. There were 4 elevators with access to the factory floors. However, only one located at the end of the long and narrow corridor was operational. Another contributing factor to the Shirtwaist Factory fire was the lack of resources from local fire departments. The fire apparatuses were unable to pump against the head pressure of 100 psi. Ladders were not tall or long enough, and no operations for rescues were in place. As a result, departments began implementing pre-plans and efforts to prepare for emergencies along with increased funding to provide adequate tools and equipment with building changes. A fourth and very large contributing factor were the faults in the fire detection and suppression systems. The hose that was used to extinguish the fire initially was rotted and the valve was rusted, therefore completely unusable. This allowed for the spread of the fire to happen very quickly. Also, fire technology at this time was not advanced enough to manage this type of fire. The ladders and hoses could only reach up to the 6th floor, which was 2 floors below where the fire had originated. Also, there were no sprinkler systems installed in the building, which could have definitely helped to suppress and control the fire. This would later change after New York passed the Sullivan-Hoey Fire Prevention Law. This law would require all factories to have sprinkler systems installed. No evidence of fire detection systems were found. What can easily prevent this tragedy? Fire detection and automated sprinkler systems for starters. While digital alarm control panels are far advanced for the time period of the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, any audible or visual alarms, bells, or flowing water sprinklers would have notified others in the building that there was a fire growing out of control and evacuation was needed. Most sprinkler systems are controlled by thermally sensitive devices. Sprinklers with a fusible link, as seen on the right, have a solder link with a specific melting point. When a fire raises environmental temperatures to that melting point, the link melts and the lever arms and struts are released. This action allows the water to flow freely. Sprinklers with a frangible bulb, as seen on the left, have a liquid encased in a glass bulb that prevents water flow. When a fire raises environmental temperatures, this liquid expands in the bulb until the bulb shatters. This action allows water to flow freely as well. Another tragedy that could have been prevented in a similar fashion was the Happy Land fire in New York City. It was the most deadly fire in New York City since 1911, killing 87 people. The club was supposed to have 3 exits, proper lighting, and fire alarms. Although this was the result of arson, the 2-story social club only had 1 working door, a small window, and no fire escape. There were no fire alarms or sprinkler systems operating in the building. In addition, the owners ignored a vacate order set in place in November 1988. As displayed in these 3 pictures, it is the proposed Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire Memorial. It is currently in the works. It's supposed to have running lights through the building and the names of the victims by the sidewalk. It is scheduled to be completed by March 25th of this year for the 109th anniversary of the tragedy. However, the plans were stalled by the COVID-19 situation we are currently going through. Throughout this presentation, we have identified the key contributing factors to the start of the fire. In addition, we acknowledged the resulting code changes from the fire. Thirdly, we identified fire prevention methods that could have been put in place to prevent the fire. Thank you for listening.